Hi, and welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Like Gwin Lisa. The storms are rolling through. We've got tornado watches going on. Had a tornado on the ground, not close by, but somewhere here in Oklahoma a little while ago. So we are going to be staying weather aware here at the new normal. But today is a Thursday, and so we've got Vsteg with our buddy Skullcap SaVant, and we are going to have a lot of fun tonight. I hope you guys will join us and give us your thoughts in the live chat. If you're watching this live with us, if you're watching this later, make sure to leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. The mighty moguls are warring, or are they? Let us know what you think right after this. Well, the thunder is rolling in. We're glad to see you, Skullcap. How's it going?
Well, I'm heartened to see that my assumptions from 10 years ago are now becoming more open to interpretation and consideration for people, and I'm not looking like such the crazy person with what conclusions I was drawing even back then about certain characters like Trump and Elon that are hot buttons in the news this week. And it's fun to be able to talk about this stuff a little bit more fluidly with common language, because people have caught up to speed a little. And the stuff I talk about is just the deception of, like you say, your language it's all a show, and it's about as accurate as it can possibly be. That we're watching, political theater unfold in front of our eyes, and the Vsteg has always just been a decoding mechanism of confirmation of sorts, to show that in relief of other things that it also shows. But things that are in the news right now are, in particular, the last week or so since we talked last, are interestingly making the normies freak out. But I'm part of Jenny's Patreon group, and she just did a reading yesterday for her patrons. Everybody should probably go subscribe to her Patreon. Her tarot readings for the private group are pretty cool, because you can submit your own queries, and one of the topics she was just like, people are still, even in that group, talking about political questions, and she was just like, guys, I'll answer these, but I'm so bored of the political stuff. Like even the Biden thing last week, when Trump truthed on his Truth Social account that Biden's fake and he's a clone or he's wearing a mask, it's just like, don't we already know that? It's just so boring. And she's like yawning. It was pretty funny. And that's kind of how I feel. I'm just like pantomiming kind of Jenny's sentiments about some of this stuff, because I'm glad that we're catching up to it, but it's still worth summarizing for the people that are coming around to it for the first time. So we're gonna.
Well, and my big question is, okay, if we're all catching up to that, at some point we have to stop and say, if we all accept that to be the truth, that Biden is not a person that has 5 different earlobes and is either 5'8" or 6'4", or that is not the same person. The auto pin thing, all this, if we accept that was not the same person for 4 years, that we don't know who that was, and that basically we did not have one president that we think the American people voted for, then everything needs to stop. And something has to change. You don't just continue to go on with the same system and say, well, okay, just keep doing the same thing. That's insanity. That is complete insanity, to say that you are okay with thinking that the person that is quote, the leader or the person in charge, the number one most powerful person in the country, possibly the world, in theory, or that we're told, or that we're trained, led to believe. Something you have to stop and say, that is not true. You cannot
We
go
would like to
forward.
think. I think, and this is just how surprising it is to me, being I'm only inside my own mind. So it still breaks me even to consider that people don't take that to that level that you're suggesting for
No,
themselves.
you have to stop. You have
Yeah.
to stop. And something has to be investigated. Something has to be done. It's like I was talking with Ken Swartz yesterday, and Pfizer and Moderna have now put warning labels in their things and on their jabos, and that it causes myocarditis in young men. Stop.
Oh, really? They actually put that on their label.
Yes.
I didn't even know that part.
Yes. So full stop, rewind, consequences.
Yeah.
We don't just move forward.
Well, this is the whole thing about, we were talking about this a bit last week, I think, the live and let live, kindness first as a policy. We got to stop with this. Like we got to, like you were saying, people are giving pedophiles a free pass. Oh, it's just a joke now. Let's forget about it. My mind can't think about that stuff anymore. No, it's not eradicated, is it? It's still a problem. Okay, well, how about we have a little bit more vigilance, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit frustrating that but here we are. We're humans. We're in this social order. Our interactive qualities, to some degree, are interoperable with the other minds that we are manifesting on this planet with at this time. And, even you and I don't get to sit here and say we're above it, because we're in the soup of it. We're in the thick of it. We're not better than it.
That's where you have to be really like, this is, my mom and I were talking and just, being grown women and mothers and going through this thing called life. And, we're all human, and I hope that we're all growing and we make mistakes, and I hope we can grow and learn from those. But I hope we're always evaluating ourselves too and saying like, wow, I could have done better. I hope I learn from that, and I hope that I do better next time. You know what I mean? And I hope that we're all looking at ourselves that way. And I think through these experiences, these significant historic experiences that we're going through, the Great Infection, these wars. We're going to get into that in a little bit. These experiences that they're showing us on TV, these selections that we're going through, how they're pitting us against each other, how everything's a team, everything's a football game, and humanity's getting lost inside of that, and I hope that we're all looking at that and saying like, wow, I could do better next time. Or how did I treat
with our next manifestation in our next bodies, kind of a thing, or just within this life is even what
I think we have to do it now.
Well, I think it's pretty critical that at least some of us do it well enough to carry on our shoulders the rest of the people that won't, because even that figure that's touted about the Revolutionary War was won by 3% of the population that even did anything to fight back. It's probably going to be something to that degree, where not everybody's even going to be up for the time. I mean, just look at the level of cognitive decline and obesity. Just start there. Just like with physical health ailments, not everybody's even going to be able to participate in that challenge that you posed to do better. And
Well, I just
kind of
wonder,
grim.
like, I posted this little picture because I couldn't get it up on the screen any other way other than changing my
Yeah.
new normal thing. Um, but I wonder if they got so many people to agree. And then, the human ego, we love being right and we love being on the right side and being on the winning team. I mean, that's how like these national champ things, these schools make tons of money. Everybody buys the cap, everybody buys the bumper sticker or the whatever, the t-shirt, and they're part of the winning team. Well, Trump and Elon built this like winning team and so many people wanted to be a part of it. And then they just went and had this fight online, and people are trying to decide which team they want to be on because they want to be on the winning team. So now they're throwing insults back and forth at each other, and everybody's like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to get caught on the wrong side. But I think it may be like, if you've ever been through something like that and then you're on the wrong side, you're in the humblings, you get the humbled like that, and you find out you're the dumb dog, you believed the lie, you fell for it. And that's what I think we're all going through. We were just talking before we got started. I was trying to make sure I didn't need to go hide in a hole somewhere for the tornado.
Yeah,
but
that's why we're a little bit late partially. Lisa's got tornadoes in classic Wizard of Oz style,
Of course, yes. Perfect for tonight for the Vsteg.
It's also interesting to say the level of being duped, because I can admit to this, even as somebody in high school who I disbelieved the 9/11 narrative right away. I got in trouble in high school. I was in 9th grade when it happened, and I was a pretty rebellious little fucker to my teachers and made their lives a little bit hellish because they would parrot shit that was so dire in the morning announcements and oh my god, and yeah, the nation is under attack and all this shit, but I questioned whether or not they were airplanes right away, and that was not okay right after it happened, right? So as a for instance, but that all being said, I still dove into sports. I still played sports and liked the Seahawks. I grew up in the Seattle area in Puget Sound. And, I was all into that level of the theater. And one of my defining waking up moments, maybe people can remember this or not, the Seahawks won a Super Bowl in 2012. And the next year in 2013, after I moved to Arizona, they played a Super Bowl here. And it was an interesting experience because a lot of my friends came down to visit. They went to the game and stuff, and they're going to repeat. And they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, the Tom Brady Patriots. And the 9/11 components, and here's some of the qualia originally that, connects my skeptical mind, my critical mind. I actually had found Cliff's work in college after high school. Between these two events, I had first locked even on to Cliff High's reports on my college intranet. There was no cloud. Right. It was pre-cloud. It was called an intranet, and it was basically a school-sanctioned repository for document sharing and file sharing and music. And you were in the dorms and people shared shit. And Cliff's reports came up because he was also somewhat local to the Seattle area.
That's so cool. Yeah.
And so continuing on, the Seahawks inexplicably lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots that year because of some dumbass play. They had this amazing catch that right at the end of the game that got them back in it, and they were on the 1 yard line ready to punch it in for the win. And they had the number 1 running back in the league, Marshawn Lynch. And all they had to do was it was 2nd down and 1 yard to go to get into the end zone. And I'll never forget this, Lisa, because my mind just was the Red Seas parted that day of like, what the fuck have I been paying attention to after they lost? Because Russell Wilson was their quarterback. He drops back and he's going to pass. And it's like, we were watching it at my buddy's house. And all of a sudden, everybody's hearts just were like, what is he doing? What is he doing? And he's going to pass the ball. Why didn't he hand it off to Marshawn Lynch? and he throws it into the end zone for an interception, and the Seahawks lose. So at that level,
the contract. Didn't you read the contract?
That's what you have to ask yourself in those moments. This is what I'm trying to express to the people out there watching. There are these critical moments that probably happen in your everyday life that don't make fucking sense. And if you're not looking at them for the theater that they are, you're never going to look through it. But there was all this weird shit that happened on that play. There were 12s and 21s everywhere. So get this. This is what was so crazy. I immediately saw this stuff as it unfolded. And I had to go lay in the grass and stare up at the stars for the rest of the night because my mind was just like, what the hell is going on? What is reality, you know? And the reason this was is because, so Russell Wilson, it was 2nd and 1, right? The clock said 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go as the ball was snapped. He threw the ball into the end zone to number 21, Malcolm Butler, who intercepted the ball. Russell Wilson ended the day with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. You know, you also had this whole emphasis in Seattle with the 12th man being there are 11 players on the field, but the 12th man wins games because they're so loud in the stadium that nobody can hear anything, and the playmate, blah, 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 blah. You see all of this stuff line up in this one play. 12s and 21s fucking everywhere. Oh, and he was 12 for 21 on the day. So 12 completions out of 21 attempts. So his stat line, the yard line that he was on, the player that he threw it to, the gematria of the player that he threw it to, the players that were involved in the play all line up to 12 and 21. And so, you know, I was just starting to get into gematria at the time, in decoding things. And all of a sudden, it all locks into place all at once. And there's a feeling, there's a trust that you've got to have in yourself when reality doesn't match, even if you don't want it to. Because, you know, I didn't want it to. All my friends are still inside. They're all pissed off. They think it's real still. How could this happen? Oh my God, I had money on the game. You know, I never bet on that fucking shit, but they did. And they all lost a shit ton of money. And blah, 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 on and on it goes. The theater is made apparent. The curtain of Oz is pulled back as it goes. And, you know, there's a lot to correlate what's happening, I think, between Trump and Elon with their little Twitter war this week that we can point to in the same vein, right?
Yeah, it was interesting to me that Fox News put out that oh gosh, I can't remember the whole headline now, but they said something about, you know, this bitter war kicks off between Elon and Trump, and Trump cancels Elon's contracts as Elon, how did they say it? Something like he was booted from Doge. And I was like, okay, no, he had a 130-day contract, which is, they can't be, it's the way the government's set up, because he's not an elected person. Like it's a whole thing where he couldn't be, it was a special contract. They couldn't have stayed more than 130 days. He was not booted from Doge. But the way the newspaper is going to spin it is that he was kicked out and now he's bitter. And so now he's saying this and that. And now supposedly Elon is saying that Trump is on the real reason the Epstein files haven't been released is because Trump is on it. Well, first of all, if Trump was on it, those Epstein files would have been leaked out immediately. We all know now that the whole Epstein thing is part of the CIA, Israel, usual way of government doing business. That was put out there by the CIA themselves. Like they shared that information themselves. So like, this is just the way they do business. This is how they control people. And they're telling the American people, this is what we do. And they still need this information because they need to control these people. This is same. It's the new boss, same as the old boss. Nothing has changed here, people. We're just asking you to wake up and to see what they've been doing to you, me, all of us for all these years. And then we can choose to participate or not. I
Well,
choose not.
yeah. And a couple of things for people to consider here, even about, the Epstein files and Trump and Israel. A lot of people say they've known about this for a long time, because look at the photos. We've seen Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. He's been photographed. And it's like, okay, does that implicate him? This is at a ball gala at some fucking money raising event that everybody gets their photos snapped at. Does that
Right.
implicate
Do you know how
him?
many people have taken their picture with Bixweir that he
Yeah.
doesn't know who they are? Yeah.
Exactly.
It does not implicate him in anything. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's another one people like to point at that I like to jab a little bit back and say, do you really think this is the case? They say, oh, he's bet the knee to Israel. He's touched the Wailing Wall and wore a yarmulke. And it's like, does that swear fealty to the state of Israel, or is that part of the play too? Last time I checked, going to Israel and like putting your head down and touching a wall for the fucking cameras does not make you swear fealty to the rabbinical councils that run the fucking world. It's just another photo op. What does that actually tell you? Don't you think that Trump knows what he's fucking doing if there's another level to that show, right? As a potential. And I'm not even arguing that. I'm just saying, is it what you think it is definitively, or could it be something else? That's it.
I think the biggest thing is that we have to question it. And the biggest thing of all of it is that we have to take personal responsibility, and we have to stop letting them drag us around by our nose and us waiting with bated breath to see what they're going to do to us next. Well, what are they going to do to us next? What are they going to do to us next? And us waiting for them to change our life instead of us changing our lives and being, I'm going to use the word, hold on, people, sovereign individuals. I think that's where we have to just take personal responsibility, and we have to make these choices, and we have to see that every time you look on a flat screen, whether it's a computer, your phone, if it's the news or a cartoon or someone that is not a 3D person that you know personally, it is most likely made up. It's a script.
At the very least, even if it's not most likely, I think the way I would phrase it for myself is that's the first thought I'm going to have is to disprove that it's not any way that I can. And if I can't, I'm always going to have suspicion that it might be, because we were talking about this too, like even the Twitter battle that Trump and Elon are having. Everyone's saying Trump said this, Elon said that. Trump said this back, Elon said this back. Do we fucking know that Trump is sitting there typing away? Do we have a camera to verify this? Do we have an individual who's on the horn with us, like you said, that we know that's never going to lie to us, that's in the same room, is watching Trump type on his Twitter account and actually do that? Or is it automated? Is it an agent? Is it anyone that's like literally anyone else in the administration that could have access to a Truth account or a Twitter account? And the same goes for Elon and, his video game Diablo playing.
The other thing is this all part of a show to cover up something else? Because you have to remember that, so there was the supposed drone attack on Russia from Ukraine, which Ken said yesterday that they don't have the satellite capability to pull that off. Only the US does. So then Trump gives a call supposedly to Putin, and then writes us a little tweet and says, hey, don't worry, everyone. We had a great talk. We worked it all out. Putin is going to retaliate in a strong way, but then we're going to work out something with Iran. So don't worry about it.
And we actually have to believe that the phone call even took place.
We have to believe that. However, then Janine shared somebody's post saying that there's a tremendous number of Starlink satellites have been knocked out of commission over Europe and Russia today. And that Russia may start shooting them out of the sky. And I don't know where she got that information. I can't remember the post, but I shared it from her Telegram to my Telegram. So you guys can find that on the Team Mighty. So, but Starlink has not confirmed or denied that. So I don't know if that's true. Is this little fight that they're having to cover up that maybe Russia did retaliate because they knew that that drone strike was not capable without U.S. support, right. And that was their way to fight back, was take out the Starlink. Look, you're not going to have satellites over my country if you're going to support Ukraine attacking me with those satellites. I mean, that's possible too. But then once again, do we believe any of this? I don't know.
Well, we can't. All we can do is speculate at this point. Even Stephen Quast, the guy who's talking about all this futuristic technology, right? Okay. So
yeah, but Ken is the one who did the calculations to help them land they couldn't make a landing on the moon because they didn't understand the shape of it.
Of course,
Ken is the one that came up with the calculations to help them land the rover thing to get it on the moon. And he's like, that's bullshit. They're not mining helium-3 on the back of the moon. So, but Quast is saying that they are.
So he's saying that. And then he's also, and so there's another thing Quast was saying, and this just has to do with the communications aspect of things. Even going back to the Hillsdale College talk that he gave, which essentially outlines quantum entanglement, as they call it now, with communications devices. And this has actually been proven in labs to potentially be our future for communications without having towers and stuff. We have Starlink just as a topic, as what we're supposed to believe your little box that you get when you get it delivered to your house is receiving. Okay, I got my Starlink box. I'm hooking it up. I got a signal. That's all you know. You got a signal and your internet works. You're led to believe that it's because of a bunch of Starlink satellites that are up there. But couldn't we also speculate that it could be something else that's receiving the communication? I don't have eyes on those satellites. I don't even know that they're up there. I've never actually been able to see visual verification, or even if you're to believe the weather applications that are out there that show all the sensor arrays and the cloud densities for all the weather. We all check weather apps these days, and the weather changes hour by hour by hour by hour by hour. How are we supposed to believe that the sensors are telling us anything that it's actually analyzing? Right. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's all just pre-simulated. That kind of a thing. And so if that's the case, where's your signal with your Starlink box coming from? Can you really trust that it's coming from a satellite? Or could it be any other possibility that a guy like Stephen Quast is saying, there's other communications arrays out there that don't require satellites? It's just picking up a wavelength from somewhere, transmitting it. Mm-hmm. We without actually taking the time to go step by step and investigate this stuff, we don't know. We're literally in that age. It's like the fog of war is so thick that it's almost too much for everybody on Earth to consider all this stuff time after time after time. They've just been conditioned to believe hook, line, and sinker, like you said, everything the media puppets at them. But where do we even start with picking this apart? Maybe it's a good time. Maybe it's a good time, since we're talking about this fakery with the war too, to bring up this little Max Egan clip that I sent you too. Just we don't need to watch this thing, but I want to direct everybody's attention to this. So I'll probably have Lisa toss this in to the links at the bottom, but I don't know, just click anywhere like in the middle of the video by the time they're talking. Yeah, like right there, and then hit pause after you do, because I'll explain what this thing is.
Look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hit pause real quick.
So you got that.
Okay. So what we're watching here, guys, this is an interview that I recommend anybody that's looking to add some speculative critical thinking to their repertoire for decoding or considering the event stream unfolding, especially this summer, is to look at what this guy, was it Matt Guertin? Is that what the guy's name is? Matt Guertin.
Okay.
Mac Werton is an AI and video production specialist. That's what he is. He knows what he knows. And he sat down with Max last summer and went through, as you can see on this video, a 2-hour-long little dissertation with Max to share with him his findings on all the video evidence out there of the October 7th supposed attacks, alleged attacks from Hamas on Israel. The thing that started all this latest Gaza attack shit off. The thing that gave Israel the cause, they would say, or the whatever, the just cause is what they call it, to go and just bomb the shit out of a bunch of innocent civilians. He showed pretty definitively, at least to me, and probably the rest of the audience, once you watch this, that 90+% of the footage that's out there is verifiably AI generated. All the camera, the worn camera footage, the body cams that the terrorists were wearing, all of the cell phone footage that got posted to social media, all of the, the heinous acts of rape and kind of, broken bones for these poor innocent women that were getting violated by Hamas and thrown in the back of trucks, all the shootings that were done of people in the face. It's all AI. And he goes through and shows you all the artifacting of all the things that make it AI, things that you probably didn't know how to look for until you watch what he's saying in this video. And the reason why this matters, and kind of tying it even back, why you should probably criticize and question all of the video footage of the drone attacks on Russia to a certain degree that Ukraine rendered on Russia. And oh my God, Russia's just crippled now. What are they going to do? Is that we are getting reports out of Russia from people on the ground. If you go to other internet browsers that aren't Google and search what people are actually saying in Russia, is they're like, what attack?
Yep.
What attack? I didn't see an attack.
Well, do you remember at the beginning of the Ukraine stuff where they had the really bad actors, where they had them dressed like something out of like the 20s? They had the babushka running with her little loaf of bread.
Yeah.
And like, it was so ridiculous. And they had cars flipped over and like fake like styrofoam rocks. But then all the buildings behind, not a single window was broken. And I was like,
there you go.
Wow, that bomb was really amazing. Like all that destruction, but not a single.
Just really strong windows, really well-built windows is what those must be.
And then what angered me so much with this Hamas stuff, this Israel attack, I've held a dead child. And there was a video of a woman showing her supposed dead daughter, and she's holding up what's clearly a rag doll because she's lifting it up and it has no weight to it, and the head is floppy and the arm has no weight to it, and the this man grabs the fake head, has no weight to it, lifts the head up like it's nothing, and the arms swinging like this. And this woman's lifting this doll. And I was so angry because it was clearly a doll. And they wanted you to think that and they wanted you to sympathize with this person saying that it was her dead daughter. And it,
and not matching the level of emotion that one should probably have for that traumatizing experience, right?
No, yeah, it's sickening. Like to pretend something like that and to use such a horrific act and fake that is disgusting.
Yeah. But here we are having to deal with the ramifications of it either way. And this is part of what gets people from considering it, I think, a lot, is because they don't want to bring themselves to question that. They, a lot of people will probably fall into a category, I think, of not wanting to doubt themselves when they see something like that, because then what does that mean for them? It means maybe to them that they've lost their humanity, their ability to empathize, their ability to blah, blah, blah. And so they cast aside their critical thinking impulse, their intuition that they have that this might be bullshit, but whatever, because I can't let my mind go there. That's too disturbing for me
That's
to
why
think.
they created the whole anti-Semitic thing, the thing you're not allowed to challenge. You know, when you're not allowed to say a thing with the people you aren't allowed to criticize, you know, all of that, that is what you should be asking a question. Why am I not allowed to ask the question? You know?
Yeah. Why can't we discuss this even?
Why can't we even have a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even criticizing. I'm just having a conversation. But why can't we even have a conversation? Why is it automatically that I'm criticizing if I have a conversation? You know, what's wrong here?
Yeah, there's actually this little deck of cards here. Do you see this thing? It's called the Critical Thinking deck of cards. They're flashcards in a way, and these serve me quite well. What all they are, Lisa, is they list out the various things: false cause analysis, black or white, the appeal to authority, the burden of proof. Sorry, they're backwards for me because I'm reversing the camera.
Yeah.
Tu quoque. These are different things, psychological veils that media pulls over your eyes, people that are really seasoned in debate, even the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, the people that have AIPAC, right? These people that have control over what you can and can't say about Israel and anything relating to criticizing the Pharisees or the Elohim worship cult, as Cliff declares them, right? Which is, I think, a pretty appropriate term. These things are cast backwards on us without us having a defense against them, because we don't even know that they're using these arguments in these ways. It's a whole deck of cards that show logical fallacies and cognitive biases, all of them, and declare what they are.
We did a whole study this year in homeschool, a book called The Fallacy Detective. And it was like 25 different types of fallacies. Yeah. And the kids then would do skits where they'd study different kinds of fallacies, and then they would do little skits acting out the type of fallacy. It was a great exercise for them. Yeah.
That's exactly why I got these cards in the first place, was when Allison started working with teenagers, was so I can share and teach them what they don't know about what they need to be armed with in order to think appropriately about what is, what isn't, or what may be. And life is just a series of indeterminate factors that you've got to sift through, and you probably don't ever know what you think you know unless you know these qualias like Cliff talks about, your psychic intuition and your knowing and your knower mind and your locking in of that psychicness that is probably your best North Star in terms of determining these things and sussing out the bullshit. So many people are going to be unaware that they're being brandished with this stuff, and that's why they feel exhausted. I think a lot of time. I myself don't feel that exhausted. I just feel annoyed and frustrated myself a lot of the time when people don't get around to this stuff, but they've never been taught this stuff because they've been.
Some of it's kind of challenging and exciting when you realize that when you see it, it's kind of exciting because you're like unpacking a puzzle. So one of the things I'm not quite finished with this interview yet, but it's got so much great information. Jack Cruz goes through this 4-hour history lesson and information. He does talk about the blue light, but he doesn't focus on the blue light. But he talks about the history and what happened and why there was $3 million missing, because the Colombia cartel and the gangs and what happened with all that, when that went and $3 million went missing, and they took $3 million to go start Vegas. And who is really behind Las Vegas?
Meyer Lansky.
Mhm.
People need to look into who Meyer Lansky is. That's a whole different topic.
It is. And what were those brothers? Oh gosh, I can see them. Oh gosh, just go watch this interview. It is so good. But it's great information, and it will tell you why we are in the situation that we're in. And it's all about
the Luciano brothers.
No.
Look at, or at least
Dulles.
Dulles
brothers. Yeah, sorry. Dulles brothers. And America, it's the great money laundering.
Alan Dulles was the originator of the CIA, everyone, if that name sounds familiar. He was the first director of the CIA.
So, great interview.
Psychological operations. So, it's in the vein of psychological operations, this is what we're dealing with this week. I think everyone that's initiated with the Q posts at least know that was a psychological operation in reverse, probably by now. At least the very first trip code of Q. Let's forget about the Q that posted into the abyss into the 2020s. All we can be sure of is the Q trip code identifier that started on October 30th, 2017, and went all the way through the summer of 2018. There was about a 9 to 10 month period, the same trip code. And by the way, there's kind of like a noticeable hallmark of those original Q posts that differs from the rest of them. You'll notice if you go back and look at them, Q asks questions and confirms responses, and that is it. He's asking a question. Who is this person? What is this event? He. I say he. I shouldn't associate any sort of like entity, sexual orientation even to Q. We don't even know what the entity of Q was altogether. But let's just say Q, the entity, asked questions, gave confirmations when the Anons or the autists or, the army of Pepe on the Chan boards were responding to such things in their scouring of the internet and message boards and then posting things that were responsive, that were the correct answer that Q was looking for. That's all Q did for those first periods. After that, kind of all bets are off because there's a lot of claims that Q then starts to make. And that's when you, I think, have to start to be suspicious in the psychological operation takes a different turn for the worse. People are already trusting of Q at that point. So they think that, because Q said it, this is gospel. But how can you possibly believe that after the trip code changed, if you know how the Chan boards worked? And this is what the biggest discussion of anybody that knew how that shit worked at the time. I was one of them. I somehow, because I was looking in all the corners of the internet to determine, the GCR and the Nasara Gasara stuff, I was trying to determine where these people were originating at that time. I was doing deep research, and then the Las Vegas shooting happened. By the way, there's your Vegas. Mm. The Stephen Paddock Las Vegas shooting that was 80% op and 20% real because people did effing die. But it was an op. It was a false flag operation where that was our first line of critical thinking that Q was dropping relative to that started off this whole thread. And we go back to that, and you can kind of look at what psychological operations are at a higher level, and you can pick them apart. Lisa, I found the document, by the way.
Okay.
The one that says the Intercept document, Art of Deception, Training a New Generation of Covert Online Operations. Click that one.
Okay.
You can link that for people. We were having trouble finding my PDF version of this, guys. This is actually something that Edward Snowden posted to his page.
I'll see it. Okay.
In 2011 or 12, when he was originally, the whistleblower for the NSA's antics. So this is the thing that's on the front. I'm not trying to impress you, but I'm Batman. So this is part of the Vsteg. Anybody we haven't even scratched the surface on this show that Lisa and I do for only an hour a week on what the Vsteg all portends. But Batman is a huge signifier for the V-steganography research, and we'll leave it there for now. But what this document outlines is essentially the psychological frameworks, almost like you would see in subliminal program. I know this framework very well because I'm classically trained in marketing and advertising. That's what I got my degree in college. And this is all the same knowledge. That's why there's so much cross-pollination and mind control and advertising, and why you're swayed with the influence that you're brandished with when you're given advertising formats, when you're given subliminal programming into movies and storytelling. And this document is only a crash course in this. But this document was key for the normies, at least on the internet, and the people that were on the Chan boards to understand the pathways by which people think about things, the progressive analysis that people need to take, kind of in lockstep with all of memorizing all these cards. But, you know, this might seem like a lot of information, even just packed into this document here, but I guarantee you it's not too much to understand. Pause right there, too.
There you go.
Right there. This is actually just a visual example of World War II and the inflatable tank strategy that General Patton rendered in the war. General Patton, everybody, was very regretful, verbally so, even going so far as to outlining for a very young JFK, who was a journalist in his young 20s, who went and toured Germany with General Patton after the war, a solemn General Patton, who was convinced after everything had ended that he had participated in fighting for the wrong side. Yes, I kid you not, General Patton was convinced he had fought for the wrong side in World War II after all was said and done. And very unfortunately, I think, for the course of events that unfolded, just as an example, guys, Dresden was firebombed, and Dresden was a Tartarian city. It was a Tartarian remnant. It was the most cultured city in the world. And just like ISIS that we talked about last week, trying to deface the Middle East of all the true archaeological history, it was one of the goals of the Allies, fucking FDR and Churchill and Stalin, all the communists. Yes, guys, FDR, communist. Believe it or not, Churchill, communist. They were all on the same side against. They were anti-culture. They were fighting for the Elohim worship cult side of things. General Patton, so good at strategy, employed the highest level of psychological operations that a general possibly could, and aided that he may have been the defining factor in the war when all is said and done, when we look at all this stuff. And it was because of strategies like this inflatable tank strategy. Yeah. He was outmanned and outgunned by the German blitzkrieg. We couldn't get anything deployed over to certain areas of the battlefield in time because the Germans were so effing good at that blitzkrieg strategy that Patton, in a few different occasions, devised that they would make replica tanks that were big inflatable rubber dummies that were so convincing from a distance in a telescope or anybody looking in binoculars or anything like that, they would look real enough from a distance or from the air, from a scouting plane or something, that it might dissuade a certain attack, that the blitzkrieg would be outnumbered and such, right? So he successfully held off the offensive of the Germans on several different fronts, on several different occasions, such that real reinforcements could arrive and replace the inflatable tanks, or just prevent a battle from happening in the first place. It was a very effective strategy.
If we look at Afghanistan, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, a lot of people compare the plane. If you look at it, it had blacked out windows, and they think it mimics the withdrawal from Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Sean Ryan, and he was saying that the way that the Afghanistan withdrawal mimics, and so they may be mimicking that to try to get some justice from, or to teach people how badly we withdrew from Vietnam.
Right,
And
right. Lisa specifically, everybody, if you want to go look up this, you can do a little search on the internet. August of 2021, the pullout from Afghanistan, the botched pullout from Afghanistan. This was one of the first instances where people actually also started to see through the Biden pretendency as an op, because Biden was mysteriously missing for weeks, for like 3 weeks. He didn't render a comment. I think it was like 2.5 weeks after the botched pull out of Afghanistan that nobody could reach Biden for a comment. And we see last week, by the way, if everybody recalls this, probably when Trump truthed or tweeted,
right, and
whatever.
supposedly Marines were killed, all of this, and
Right.
he couldn't be found, couldn't be bothered, on vacation again or something, you know.
Yes, and there's a clip. There's a very specific clip of a C-130, of a military C-130. There's a specific call sign on the side of it, and you can go look at that very plane that's docked on an airstrip somewhere. Compare it to like the one that Lisa's talking about, and you can look. There aren't any turbines inside the engine cavities. No turbine. There isn't going to be a fucking airplane that's taken off without any turbines. And there are all these flailing Afghanis underneath it. Oh, save me, save me. And so many of them are laughing. So many of them are smiling. So many of them are et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to make your mind spin that there's an op going on. And it all points back to certain psychological operations like this. And we in this community, especially, again, referencing back to Jenny Constantine, you can go to her tarot readings, and there's a very widespread understanding that there's a likelihood that Trump might actually be the blood-related son of Patton, and that he was inserted into the Trump family to be raised such that he could go through all the Jesuit school training. Because, guys, everybody points to that too. Oh, Trump attended a Jesuit school. Yeah, but the Jesuits are also the best at psychological programming, at psychological operations. That's the militant arm of the black part of the Vatican that's been mind controlling the masses for years. They are the military arm of the Elohim worship cult. And so Trump, maybe you should go do a tarot reading with Jenny again and like kind of determine some of this stuff for yourself. He's involved in a way that you can't comprehend inside of an op to wake you up through the Q narrative, through all of the visual representations that we're seeing, in order for you to think through, is this a psychological operation? And this document here is a little cheat sheet. It's not like a whole book of things that will prove anything to you, but it gives you a little bit of a quick hitting playbook to reference. And that's why Edward Snowden posted this for so long on his personal site, as to give you kind of a critical analysis tool for thinking through, is what I'm looking at real? And this is even before the age of AI. So these are just basic things that you can imprint on your mind as a human, with or without AI, to analyze things.
And are they pulling a psyop on you? And I would also challenge you to remember when Sidney Powell did the righteous anger thing, which I can't find the exact video, but it was the release the Kraken.
Yes.
Where she said, she was so angry. This might be it.
It was after Trump dropped her, right?
I don't know about that. It was when she came out. This was when Giuliani had the sweat with his bad hair.
Yeah, here it is. This is the one.
Effort to contest the results of the U.S. election. In a statement released on Sunday, Trump's other campaign lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis, said Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own.
Okay, so
he is not a member of the Trump legal team. The announcement comes just a day after a judge dismissed the Trump campaign's bid. Evidence at
set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden, which we might never have uncovered had the votes for President Trump not been so overwhelming in so many of these states that it broke the algorithm that had been plugged into the system.
Trump allegedly expressed concern after the conference that Powell's claims were too outlandish, according to a source familiar with the discussions. Powell did not immediately respond to a request for comment. With Biden set to take office on January 20th, Trump's effort to overturn the election results.
Anyway, there's one where she says, and it's in that interview where she says, "I'll release the
It was
Kraken."
when she was at that podium.
It
Yes,
was
yes,
when she was at that podium. But then I wanted to share. Then
Everybody, by the way, a little bit of a tidbit. Sidney Powell has a book out there. It's called Licensed to Lie. Licensed to Lie is the book that Sidney Powell wrote. And it's a good book to read because it talks about the legal ramifications of psychological operations and what happens in the court system to do the same, to pull the wool over your eyes.
I believe this is something or maybe not. This is it's gonna have music on it.
Well, this is the thing you're getting onto. This is the military's disorientation weapons array system that,
as we abbreviate it, is the leading aeromedical causal factor in Class A mishap. What the Kraken will bring, again, is in a controlled environment, we'll be able to replicate those forces of flight that get normal, healthy pilots into trouble. The accelerations of flight can actually lead to a pilot feeling like the aircraft is doing something that it's not.
Once we throw that motion component in there, they're actually feeling that seat of the pants feeling of flying their airplane, and it could completely change the way we're looking at the vestibular illusion versus the visual illusion and putting those two together.
SD is a killer, and we're trying to understand it better in our lab here at NEMRD.
There's almost no vehicle that we couldn't simulate with this machine between the out-the-window displays and reconfigurable controls and seats.
We're able to take physics data from a flight simulator, things like the G-forces, acceleration, pitch, roll, and yaw, and then convert them mathematically into the actual motion limitations that the Kraken itself has.
I think with the capabilities of the Kraken, we have, for the first time in decades really, an opportunity to address these problems because we can reproduce them now.
It is a tremendous honor to be part of that as an aerospace physiologist, and it really is the pinnacle of my career to be here and be involved with the development of this tool that will hopefully save lives and reduce the number of mishaps we have from pilot space disorientation.
The team consists of the motion algorithm programmers. We have a series of physicists and motion experts that are coming up with math that doesn't even exist right now to convert the forces of flight into similar forces within the range of motion that the device allows.
I'm blessed to have a great team, and that's the reason why this device is going to be a success, is not because it was delivered with all the capability we need to do the research. This team is going to take it to that point.
So together with our next door neighbors here at Wright Pat, we will comprise the single greatest acceleration research facility within the DoD and indeed within the nation.
Disorientation research.
Yeah. So I think to summarize kind of what that video is, if I'm not wrong, you're tying the Sidney Powell
Mm-hmm.
Suggestive symbolism and steganography that she's saying with releasing the Kraken into the fact that what she's getting at is breaking the spell of disorientation that the public had on their senses. Because what this Kraken machine that the Navy uses does at a glance is it takes a pilot and trains them against the inclination of their senses to lie to them because of different things that can happen in the middle of flight, underwater, under different G-force conditions, under different acceleration conditions. And when those extreme conditions are imprinted on our senses, it gives the pilot oftentimes a sense that they're moving at a speed they're not, moving in a direction that they're not, maybe having vertigo in a sense that they're not having. And so if they go into this machine, the Kraken, and train themselves against the better inclination of their senses, they can get training that pushes those inclinations aside and gives them a more correct reading through said training. Right?
The machine was a simulation of being in that underwater whatever. I think when she said, I'm going to release the Kraken, I think we are in the simulation. We are in the movie, the military movie. And like when Trump said, oh, I should have been a movie maker. That was another nod. And when we are learning, like when you watch the Jack Cruz thing, how much of this is, and I don't know if it was on a Tucker interview, somebody was just talking about how like the CIA is actually, it's not about spying as much as it is a psychological operations unit. It's about, they have a bunch of psychologists and they know how to get information from people by using psychology. It's not about spies and, flipping a phone device and like we, grew up thinking about what the CIA was. It's about psychology and using psychology on people. And that's where like the Epstein thing is really a honeypot to use blackmail. It's a psychological op to make people feel vulnerable and use psychology to manipulate people. It's a manipulation tool. And so that's what I think. I think that I think we're in the Kraken. We're in the movie. What did I just call it? The disorientation. Yes, the destabilizing thing. And I think that part of that is because we needed to wind down the Fed note, the central bank, the death of not the US dollar, not the constitutional dollar, but it was time to end the Fed and the Fed note and transition us to constitutional money. And that was the safe way to do that. Or the least painful, as much as it is painful. But we're being healed. The patient is being healed. We're learning, we're being trained to wake up and to learn our bearings and to see what is fake.
So in that regard, what do you think about my interpretation this week? I just had this thought like a couple days ago because Trump tweeted truthed. He doesn't tweet. Like I keep saying, but whatever. I apologize. He's always gone Jerome Powell's ass about this kind of thing, right? You got Jerome Powell. He needs to drop interest rates. This is what he keeps saying. This is the same refrain. And he's finally said it enough times where it finally clicked with me. I'm like, I think what Trump's saying is part of this. He's trying to drop our level of interest, our interest rate, our interest of the mind, right? Like, because I can get interested in a movie. I can get interested in this podcast. I can get interested in memorizing these cards. So I was thinking maybe that's what he's saying. In part of the unwinding process, he's got to drop the level of interest that people have in paying attention to the lies, to the psychological overlay in order for the demonstrable effects to unwind that system to actually happen without the chaos, right? What do you think about my interpretation of that? Maybe.
It could be. That makes a lot of sense. The other thought when you were speaking about it, I was thinking, well, he's kind of saying he needs to, like if he doesn't, then there's an alternative choice. Like, well, because so what's leading up to that is that we're getting ready to refinance our debt, so a large portion, like 70% of the United States debt. Well, like personally, if I have a debt, I can refi at a different bank if I wanted to. Right? So is Trump telling them, look, you need to drop your interest rate or I'm going to shop somewhere else? Is that a possibility? Could he shop somewhere else to refi the debt, the U.S. debt?
Or is he just going to kickstart the Road to Ruta plan and make it all convertible into the Colorland, gold denominator?
I vote for that one. Yeah. Man, I like the interest. Yeah. Dropping the interest. That sounds good.
It was just a thought that I had. And it was one of those that hit me strong and hard when it did. And I was like, I hadn't thought of it that way before, but I can't unthink it now,
Well, and if it's hurting the American people too, because they can't, they aren't able to buy a car or get a house or whatever, because it's affecting them as well with these high interest rates, then that kind of goes.
Well, maybe we can end on the note that you were so keen on, I think, with our texting this week. I mentioned everybody, even with the Jolly Roger interpretation last week about, Jesus's skull and bones. And that's what the Templars, the Cathars, right? And that would render the Pentecost as an untrue event, a lie, a fabrication. Now, Lisa pointed out that June 8th, coming up in just a few days, is the day that is commemorated this year as the day we observe the Pentecost.
Is now, it the 8th? Oh, yes, it is.
The 8th is what you said in our text. I don't know if that's actually true, but
yeah, you're right.
So
it's the same day.
Same day as what?
The USS Liberty attack.
The same day as the USS Liberty attack. Joni Patry has been talking about boats, shipwrecks, oil. By the way, the summer's already kicked off with that. There was an article that was posted in Zero Hedge just a couple of days ago that showed that a bunch of vehicles and EVs were stuck on a container ship that caught on fire in the middle of the Pacific en route. So even just regular ass incidents, she's just spot on. And we also have Neptune and Saturn conjuncting starting on this date, and Mars going into, Heidi would know better than we would. What Mars is going into its next sign, which is not, it's going out of Cancer, I think, and into the next sign, which I need to learn the progression better. But on June 8th, Mars is actually progressing into something where it's igniting into a more warlike tendency. So we have astrological alignments. We have Pentecost. Remember, Pentagon, 5 sides, the senses, the Vsteganography. V is the number 5, kind of a crash course in just the symbolic representation of some of this stuff. But I've always thought it was interesting too. Jesus is represented in the Jewish Pharisee rabbinical council, Elohim worship cult type of language as a guy who represents banking terms. You ever notice that? He's the redeemer. You redeem things from a bank. He's the savior. You save finances. The Pentecost, it costs you what? Your mind, the truth. These are all just, and the list goes on, by the way. The associations of banking terminology with Jesus as a character as outlaid by the Pharisees' version of what the Bible represents in all the religious contexts of all of the major 3 religions of the world, which are all fabrications of the real linguistic interpretation, as we know from Mara Baglino, what's going to happen maybe on the Pentecost this year that really rends this all open for us. It's just food for thought and kind of speculative. It's kind of like, speculative play thoughts out there to see if it really happens that way. We'll see. This interest rate thing might come into play a little bit more by the time we speak next week. But there might be some legs to some of these things to consider, is all I'm getting at.
It's definitely interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just don't get too caught up in the movie. Be critical thinkers. Enjoy the
Get
show.
yourself a pack of these cards. Get yourself a pack of these cards. I think it comes, what is this? Everybody can get these at schoolofthought.org is where I bought these. It says right on the top of the box, schoolofthought.org.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. I love it. Well, thank you guys all for joining us in the live chat. We have some great people in there. A lot of my friends.
See everybody. Sorry I can't make it to Westwood. I'm too green at this new job of mine to take any time off quite yet, but I'll make it to the next one, guys. Everybody keeps messaging me about that, and I'm sorry. I won't get to see you all.
We'll be having a meetup in the spring in Arkansas. I need to get a location.
But I'm not an AI representation. Lisa's hugged me in person. She can vouch for me.
Yes, he's real. He's a real 3D human, a real human. All right. Well, you guys go to clintwestwood.net for information about the meetup in Metamora, Illinois, the weekend after Father's Day. And we'll be talking about it tomorrow. I have a interview with Jim Willie at
look who just said something in the chat.
Oh, it's our friend Joshy Lake.
Oh, Josh Lake in the freaking chat. He can vouch too.
The real deal. That's right.
I'm sorry to interrupt you too. I was just we had to call him out for actually making it. It's good to see you, buddy.
He's been there the whole time. He was in there earlier.
Oh, and Lee Dana, the cards that I just pointed out, these are called the critical thinking cards. They are all the logical fallacies and cognitive biases that you can bolster your thinking with if you missed that part of the stream.
There you go. And they make for a fun game if you get people to, because that's what we did with the kids. So they'd read them, and then you make people act them out, and then you make the other people guess which fallacy or cognitive bias it is. It's a fun game. Play it at game. Play it at parties. Educate your friends. Anyway, so check all that out. And my interview with Jim Willie tomorrow at noon. It will not be live because he can't stream because of where he lives and all that stuff. So I will have it for Patreon first. So join my Patreon. Support the channel. It's only $1 a show, and you can show your support to me, and I would love that, and I'd appreciate. We'll be exchanging energy. So do that, and you'll get first dibs on my Jim Willie interview. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
I don't like the government right now. You don't have to. I don't trust it anymore.